like we said, we're promising stories of deliciousness. We now have Lisa Tran with 1010 Foods and Tory Campbell with Felton and Mary's Artisan Foods. Welcome you all. Take it away. Give us some.
Thank you, Marcos.
Thanks for having us.
How's everyone doing this afternoon? Doing good? All right. The few people we paid to say something responded. Everybody else, you just were. Well, my name is Tory Campbell, and I'm the founder and steward of Felton and Mary's Artisan Foods. We're a local food company, and we have a variety of products that are kind of premium products, as we would describe them, made with love. We have 3 barbecue sauces. We have a spice rub, which you can season your meats and veggies before you barbecue, bake, or grill. And most recently, we came up with a link sausage that we source locally from Carlton Farms. And all the things I just mentioned are recipes from my family's pantry, so recipes over half a century. So Lisa and I get the privilege of being able to talk with you today about legacy, but I'll give Lisa a chance to introduce herself and the food company that she leads, and then we'll jump into our conversation.
Thank you, Tory. My name is Lisa. I'm from Tan Foods. Tan means new beginnings in Vietnamese, and it was a new beginning that my parents were looking for when they escaped Vietnam after Saigon fell. We established our restaurant, Tan Cafe and Delicatessen, in Beaverton over 24 years ago. And when I was expecting twins, I decided it's going to be really hard to balance a restaurant with twins. So I took my mom's recipes for sauces from our restaurant, and we developed into retail-ready sauces. So we have 4 SKUs. They're in over 2,500 stores nationwide, and even in Japan and in Ireland. So it's been really exciting to be here, and I'm so excited to be here with Tory to talk about our family legacies and just pay tribute and honor the stories behind our brands. So thank you.
Yeah, so let's jump in. I want to maybe preface the conversation. We are going to spend the bulk of our time talking about our role in participating in what's now a family legacy. Oftentimes in our culture, rightfully so in many instances, but there's also kind of this unique phenomenon. We can be overly enamored with the first person to do something. And obviously there's a lot of credit that should be given to the first. But I think Lisa and I represent kind of this next inflection point of what does it look like to go beyond that first album? You know, the sophomore jinx, that third album, we can be like, man, that artist lost their way. I don't even play this stuff no more. I don't even know who they are, right? So it's there's also this unique space that is just as equally as important as to being the first, which is what does it mean to be the second or third within the family in terms of moving a heritage product or a vision forward. And so we'll just jump in and kind of talk about our journey. I guess we should start. Would you like to start, or would you like me to start?
I will start.
Yeah, let's do it.
So to be honest, when I approached Mitch and Rick for the Built Accelerator, they had a bunch of questions to be answered. So they asked, well, what do you need help with? And I checked off all the boxes. I said I needed help with our story, I needed help with financials, I needed help with product development, I needed help with everything. And to my surprise, they accepted me into the very first accelerator. So I'm glad to be here. But it really was a struggle. I am trying to honor my family and their history by packaging our story into this beautiful bottle that people can buy on the shelf, right? And I'm not going to be able to demo the product and tell my story to each and every single person who's at the store, but my hope is really to honor my parents and their story, and just to be able to, you know, kind of break away from their story a little bit and create my own new beginning and my own story, but still be able to pay homage to what they have built up for what we've done. And I hope I've done that.
Yeah, it's like we're in this unique space where there is room for us to be innovative, but we can't make grandma and grandpa mad. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to think about the ancestors. We can't, you know, like there is this very strong connection and tie, which I think both of us would say is a real inherent strength. but also it's something that there's a tension we have to live in. And I feel the same way with my grandparents, Felton and Mary. We had a restaurant similar as yours, a barbecue restaurant in Southeast Portland. And more importantly, the products that we had in the restaurant is what I grew up eating. So my grandparents always had big pots on the stove, always had folks over. There was always mystery meat my grandpa was smoking. I mean, you didn't know what it might be, but he can make anything tough. He can make it tender through the kind of the art of barbecuing, which I believe is really should be honored as culinary genius. And I think for the same thing. So I call myself founder and steward, not because I'm trying to be cool and coming up with some new lingo, but I think the steward part I really center on more than anything else. I'm always thinking like, really, what would my grandparents say about the way we're doing this? I tell my kids who are now at the table who've never met their great-grandparents, like, look, y'all better straighten up because Mama and Papa would not be happy if you were, and they're like, they're not even here. I'm like, look, they're on this jar. And so much, as you said, our labels was really about the story. What about your story is most important for your customer to understand and how that ties to your family?
So the most important part of our story is that building upon the sacrifices that my parents had made as immigrants and refugees to America, we landed in Portland not because my parents were out sightseeing and they wanted to stay, but really they left a country, a war-torn country that was filled with strife and started over. My parents were highly educated. They would have faced persecution if they had stayed in Vietnam. And so I really wanted to honor their sacrifice in a way that would make them proud. And I think for a lot of my life, I really struggled with, trying to be obedient, trying to just do whatever they wanted because I knew they wanted the best for me. I was actually on the track for medical school. I failed OChem like 3 times, so that didn't happen. And so the backup plan was just to come back and work at the restaurant and see how it would go. And I remember my mom would cry when she saw me peeling carrots to make the pickles for banh mi, which everybody will enjoy after this. But she just didn't want me to live this life. And I think, restaurant life is hard. It's grueling. It's a lot of hours. But I figured, I wanted to make more of it. I wanted to expand their story beyond Beaverton and Portland. I wanted to share a story with customers and consumers who haven't been able to try our flavors at their restaurant. But not only that, but just to share a story of immigrants and what a refugee looks like. And I remember among the very first times when I was able to demo our product, it was in 2016 in the thick of, the Donald Trump coming into presidency and being able to introduce myself as a refugee, as an immigrant, and, really wanting to put that story out there and being proud of my heritage. So it hasn't been easy. My mom is still not excited about me being a sauce hustler. She still has aspirations of me going to medical school and wearing that white jacket one day. We'll see. But I really want to make her proud. It's her love. It's her life. It's, I like to say with our hot chili sauce, that's my mom in a jar. That's how she gets when she gets mad at us kids. It slowly builds. But it ends with a little bit of sweetness.
That's great. Yeah, I would say with my grandparents and the label and the role, even the if you haven't seen the label, it's turquoise. And some people have always said, oh, that's so cute. That's like the color right now. That's amazing you picked that. And I'm like, we didn't choose the color because we thought it would be cute. That actually, for us, is a sign of hospitality. If you were to come to my grandparents' house back in the 90s, in Southeast Portland off 87th and Powell, you'd be greeted with my grandmother's warm smile, and that turquoise color was the color of the carpet. And so to us, it was like, how do we smash as much of our family's story on that label for people to really understand before you get into the jar, there's actually something that is very authentic and very real, and it has generations connected to it. And I think when people understand that, they go, okay, you're not just trying to be slick from a marketing standpoint. we're trying to be what? Like authentic, because that's what our parents would want for us and our grandparents. And I think that to me is actually the joy in the labor too, right? It's carrying on. I think there are moments where I felt like, man, I want to do me. I want to do my own thing. And there's been other opportunities for me to do that. But in this moment, my greatest joy is actually carrying kind of the story of someone else that came before me, and hearing my kids now be able to recite that. It grounds us in ways that I think are profound, particularly in Pacific Northwest, where we're not the critical mass in terms of ethnicity. And so to know that I'm connected to something that is substantive, that people know, that people resonate with, because the restaurant, people are like, oh, I used to go to Campbell's all the time, and as a kid, I used to hate smelling like brisket going to school. Like, really? My cool water is not killing this brisket smell right now. But now that I'm older, people go, man, your grandparents were amazing. Your grandparents did this. They broke through in this way. And that, to me, tells me that the food product is really an extension of our family story and our narrative of, like you said, as a refugee, not just showing up and trying to be quiet and pander, but about being resilient and bringing something to market. And a restaurant, it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I know what those days are like as well.
I'm one of the kids that went to Campbell's barbecue.
Yeah, you did. You told me that.
And I totally remember the carpet, and I remember your grandparents were so welcoming, and they were so amazing. The food, I used to eat meat, but it was really good. And if we wanted barbecue, we would drive all the way from Beaverton to Campbell's right off of 82nd. So it's kind of a full circle moment for me to be on the stage, and I'm so honored to be here with you, Tory. And it's wonderful because we come from such similar backgrounds. You know, restaurant life isn't for everyone. I went to high school right across the street, Beaverton High School, and my parents would come take us to the restaurant at 6 o'clock in the morning. As kids, would turn on all the ovens. We would prep all the pastries and, you know, start making all the Vietnamese coffees. And this was us running around. And I remember customers would kind of tease and be like, I hope your parents are paying you, wink, wink. And me and my brother would look at each other like, nope, they're not paying us.
Exactly.
They built us a bunk bed upstairs, actually, so we could take naps and do homework. So, you know, it's those fun things that it's a lot of sacrifice, and it's not easy. And I'm so incredibly proud of our CPG, especially our food entrepreneurship community here in Portland. You know, it's not easy. It's a hard process, but that support and that love and that passion really, really makes a founder really resilient. And it's like Tory says, you're a steward of your legacy. It's my legacy to tell our family's story of new beginnings, and hopefully to be able to invite other people to share in with this new beginning with us and taste these really authentic, tried and true flavors that we have been making for so long with so much love. And it hasn't always been just about compromise, though. I mean, like, Tory, can you tell us a little bit about the sauces? Were they exactly the right recipes that your grandparents made at the restaurant?
Yeah, you know, the sauces, they're iterative, right? You know, and back in the day, it wasn't writing down a formula. It was a pinch of this, it was a dab of that. If you were heavy-handed, I guess it's more of that this time. And over time, you crafted something that eventually was delicious, but it was just trial and error. A lot of people coming through. I remember as a kid when we first, my grandparents migrated from the Bay Area to retire in Portland, literally off of a weekend of seeing a sister. My grandpa turned to my grandmother and said, "You want to move here?" She was like, "Let's do it." They bought a house that weekend off of 87th, drove back home and told their kids we're moving in 2 months. And they were trying to escape them, and all the kids came, except for one, and all the grandkids, and I was one of them. But I remember the house that we bought on the corner, and my grandpa sat down and was like, "I want to start a restaurant. Here's the pit that I want to build." We found a black gentleman who does like masonry work, and I watched him put it all together, and we had people help us, and we were knocking down walls to bring this food that we used to eat all the time at the house. So quickly to your point, I'm all elaborating and going into storytelling mode. That's not what you asked me. You said, let's talk about the sauces. We can get into those. The trial and error. I remember there was one sauce, I will tell you, it was like my grandfather's Hawaiian sauce. and we loved it, and no one ate it. So it had to get off the menu real quick. But I appreciated him like showing like you have to experiment to get to the three that we have, which is our smoky brown sugar, which is a hickory molasses flavor profile, no preservatives, no corn syrup. You can see that you do all the demo and you know it, right?
Oh, go on.
Yes. My grandparents weren't barbecue snobs, even though my grandfather's from Texas and grandma's from Arkansas. They really just appreciated good barbecue. So that sauce is more of a Kansas City style. So you get that sweetness, the molasses that will show up. Because he was from Texas, the other two have a more of a Texas flavor profile, which is going to be like a sweeter tomato paste up front with the cumin and the garlic. And then you get heat, which is in the back of the taste palette. And the medium, we kind of say it's Oregon hot. We don't know how to describe it other than it's got a kick that comes in the back, whereas the hot says hello right up front. And those flavor profiles have been a part of my life to the point where when we brought these products back to market after being dormant for 7 years, after we sold the restaurant, we kept the rights to the recipes. I started making them, and I would invite family over for barbecues, and I would put it on there, and it would literally be this moment where you could see a cousin go, oh my God, I feel like I'm back in Mama and Papa's house. You hear an aunt almost cry, like this is unbelievable. So we do like these taste tests where I'm bringing other products back to market. I don't tell them where it's from. We just give it to our family, and they taste, they go like, this tastes like Papa's sausage, but you never told me you're bringing these back. Where'd you get this from? And so it's fascinating, the power of flavor and memory and legacy and heritage. And that's really, honestly, the joy of all of our sauces that we really have for not only our family, but for those who tried them from the restaurant like yourself and new customers. So I would say those are some of the ways in which our flavor profiles teach us about geographic origin of our family, but also just the love for barbecuing as an overall national theme. How about yourself? You told me a little bit about the spiciness of Mom's that's in that bottle. What are some of the other flavors, and how do they connect to your culture and heritage? And you probably do them your own unique way, right? Like, so we shouldn't say, oh, this is how everyone does them in Vietnam. You're like, no, this is our own spin, but tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, I mean, definitely our sauces that we have on the market right now are our own spin. I worked extensively with Sarah Missoni from the Food
Sarah
Innovations.
Missoni, $1
Right?
million
Shout
taste
out.
palette. We see you out there.
Yeah. And so it was just, at the restaurant, we would make our batches of sauces every couple days, and we would have gallons of sauce. But, when you're bringing it to mass market, you have two paths, right? You could continue on that path and make a deli-ready one that you'd have to bring in every a couple days or so forth. And I couldn't imagine doing that every day. Or to kind of develop them into a shelf-stable recipe. Developing them into a shelf-stable recipe entailed a lot of like acidification, et cetera. And so we did have to compromise and have that conversation as to, are we going to compromise our recipe to have it be able to be retail ready, or are we just going to stick to our guns and just put out what we're going to do, and it might be a lot of work, and we'll see. So, it was a little bit of having to do a little bit of compromise so that I could see how the product line could grow and expand and scale up. Because if we just kept on continuing to do what we did at the restaurant, just to put it at the shelf in the stores, I don't think we could scale as much as we could now. So
Yeah, it is interesting. I would say for you and I, so much of our work is about scaling, right? That is, we're the third album, and our album is called Scaling. That's what we're trying to do, learning how to do, the way we market, the way we talk about our family story. Like my grandpa would have been cool with a pig, chicken, and cow characters on the label, and I'm like, no, we don't do that, Grandpa. That's not going to work. We need to show the true elegance of the sauce, and it's not only originality, but also it's refined way in which we do it, right? So it's even talking about barbecue differently matters for me, so that people can appreciate it and pay that premium price, right? Because otherwise, I'm competing with people who can sell their barbecue sauces at $1.99, and we just will never get off the ground and scale. So I would say those are some of the ways that we had to compromise, which was, and my family would be like, boy, this is too expensive. This is too much. I don't know if I want to pay for it. I'm like, look, I don't think we all are putting the right kind of value on our family's product. And that took a lot of convincing of family members. Like, just because we're barbecue, it might be low country, it might be, Southern cuisine, it might have been done out of survival as a slave. But the truth be told, this product that I'm holding as a third generation is ridiculously amazing, and it's refined, and the quality of it should be expressed by what people are willing to pay for it. And so I'm pushing the bounds of that, and I know that you are as well. And it's been an odd compromise, but our family's like, well, that boy's still in business. I guess he's doing something right. That's probably been more of the way they look at it. But we've also slowed down. We've also had to slow down and say, wait a minute, let's not sell ourselves too short. And I remember a few instances, and I'll be quiet, at the restaurant it was like that, where we had mismatched seating that we took from the McDonald's across the street because they were renovating, and our tablecloths were like all kind of picnic, and it wasn't even like chic. It was just like an explosion of, let's go to the Goodwill and put anything in the restaurant that looks good to get this thing going. But through the years, the restaurant began to grow. But I remember a few instances, my grandma would have a meeting with this man. I was like, who you have a meeting with? She's like, oh, this man wants to come. He's thinking about investing. And oftentimes would be a gentleman in a really nice suit. And they would have this conversation up front. And as a young kid, I started to realize they see value in this thing that I feel like is a hot mess more than I do. And they were actually trying to buy the company from her. They would keep her as a front, but they would invest in all this. And my grandma came back, she says, I'm good, I know what I'm worth, and I know what I have. And those lessons to me stand out. And I try to do that as a third generation, to not be so quick to take the applause and the flatter of people who want to take what I have, our family has, and then they have a whole different vision for it. And then like, how did they scale that? It's because I didn't have that same kind of vision. So I love that you've taken the time to get the education, to do the thing that you're doing, to grow your company, but you still retain the power and the authenticity. I think that's tremendous.
Thank you, Tory. I mean, it's a challenge, to be sure. I grew up the same way. Like Tan, we just did a major renovation during the pandemic, but before that, same thing. My parents' favorite store is Goodwill. They love Goodwill. We had mismatched chairs, mismatched plates, and it wasn't even in like a cool, trendy way.
Not at all, no. It's like, let's go to a yard sale this weekend. No, we need cups. Let's go to a yard sale. Really? That's what we're doing right now?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it came from like a history of just pinching your pennies and coming over to America with absolutely nothing in your pocket. Like, not knowing anybody in this brand new country that you didn't speak the language of. I mean, my parents were educated, but they spoke French in Vietnam, And so it was really just, food was really a unifying factor to be able to find comfort and to bring their homeland and memories of being in Vietnam to where they are now, which was in America. So that's how we really started. And I mean, it took a lot of work for me. I remember going to school and not wanting I just wanted to eat hot lunch from school, and my mom and dad would make these beautiful meals like in a thermos. Like, what kid wouldn't want a thermos full of wonton noodle soup?
Come on.
Right? But I didn't, because I was so embarrassed by it, and it's really taken a lot of work to turn around and just be so absolutely in awe and so proud of how far my parents and my family have come to this day, and to be able to support other entrepreneurs who want to bring their products out to market, or other Vietnamese restaurants who want to open. And I'm just so amazed by their generosity and their spirit that it's really kind of something that I'm holding really tightly to myself now, and that I've learned. And I'm just so incredibly proud of where I've come from.
And you should be. Yeah. Well, we have a few minutes left. What's kind of one final thought that you'd like to share about this kind of whole theme of us really stewarding a legacy? I know we've shared a lot. What stands out to you as a final point? And I'll do the same. I'll try to think of my final thought.
I would say for me, it's if I'm just looking at it straight up close, I mean, the vision is so huge. There's so much pressure to make this into something huge and big, and something that could really honor my parents. I mean, the word honor is so many implications, so much pressure. But if I take just kind of a few steps back and look at the bigger picture and see how far we've come from, our humble days a couple decades ago of not having any customers sitting around, and then to where we are today and with the sauces, it's just to be reminded of, how far we've come and be humbled by it, and not to be enamored by, the investors or like being in how many stores or whatnot. I mean, it still comes down, it takes a lot of work. And my mom told me, it's half of the work is doing it, but the other half is maintaining it. And so it's really, really helpful for me to remember that just because, it's on the shelf or whatnot, I can't just sit back and like brush off my hands and be like done, because it's not. I mean, it's a journey and it's a marathon, and and it's really wonderful I'm so incredibly lucky to have my parents still here with me, to have that support and to have these conversations as to the vision and talk about that, and just to realize that, there are a lot of things that I didn't do that they haven't been excited about, but the journey is long, and I still have a long ways to learn and to grow, and it's an optimistic future.
Awesome. I would say for me, and I share a lot of those pieces you just articulated. I think for me, it's expanding the metrics of success, particularly in a legacy business. Oftentimes, we say up and to the right is success. I'm kind of looking at the pie chart, not the pie chart, but the chart of growth and scaling, which I know is top of mind for us. I want to see how far this can go. I want more and more people to fall in love with not only the food, but the kind of the essence of our family. But I would also say some of the other metrics that I realize are just as important are really what my grandparents were after. When they started that restaurant, they did it in part out of boredom, because my grandpa was an extrovert, and my grandma was like, look, you need to go do something with your retired self, And what the restaurant actually created was community. And it ended up being a place where I saw aunts and uncles and family travel from up and down the I-5, up and down the West Coast, and they would stop there and have meals. And so I got to meet and spend time with great aunts and uncles. It was a place where I saw my grandparents do social kind of impact as a small business and giving people many opportunities to get their lives right. And that's inspired me. And so I want to make sure that in our business, legacy is also around not just kind of the sales and how many stores we're in, but is it creating an environment for family to feel like I'm accessible, even in our perceived success, right? Because my grandparents never got to that place where they were just too much that family couldn't touch them. You had to, they would welcome in the crazy uncle and be like, come on in, let's get some ribs. And it was life. That actually was the more important thing, was to remain accessible to family. And I think that to me has been the greatest blessing, is starting the food company, kind of that next iteration of our family's love for community and food through the restaurant has meant family has come back together. There's been times where we've done demos and it's a couple of aunts and uncles doing the demos, and they're like, wait a minute, this isn't just my nephew's business. These are my parents. Hold on, let me tell you. And I love those moments. My dad demos a lot, if you've ever seen him. He's 70, but it looks like he's 38. And so oftentimes I love hearing him say, wait a minute, Felton and Mary, those are my parents. And that to me is powerful. I'm like, our business is succeeding by continue to create family and being able to help people. We started a scholarship this last year for BIPOC students, and we were able to raise, I think, $3,000, and $1,500 of that went to David Douglas students. One young lady's going to Princeton, another one's going to PSU, Latinx student's going to PSU, and another Ethiopian student's going to PSU. And then we supported 3 high schoolers in the Dominican Republic, who for them, that $500 scholarship pays for all of their college for that whole year. That's important to us, not because we're a company that's balling, but I always tell people, the mighty oak tree is in the acorn. And so I want to reflect who we are, even as a small company, what we will be down the road. And that's, again, the legacy of my grandparents. And that is equally as important to me as well.
And I love that. I love that you're expanding upon the legacy of your grandparents, and then also kind of laying down the path for your legacy to carry on. And I love that, Tory.
Well, that's what we're doing, Mr. Lisa. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.